Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tech in the Workplace. Happy Sunday. We're going to spend a couple of hours looking at Microsoft Excel today. So I'm glad that you joined. What I'd like to do to begin with is just either have you turn your microphone on or put in the chat just a little bit about what your experience with Excel is. I'm going to assume when I start this training that you have not used Excel in the past, so we're going to start with the real basics and we'll move our way up. I will be covering Microsoft Excel this Sunday and next Sunday, just to let you know. So if you want to go ahead and just put something in the chat or turn on your microphone, that would be great. And yes, this is being recorded. When the recording is available, either the DoSpace will send it out, either I will send it out of the DoSpace. I'm not sure. We'll figure that one out. Okay, all right. Thanks, Tanya. Anybody else want to share? We're a shy group this morning. Okay. What we're going to do is we're just going to start with a blank workbook. So if you will pull up a blank workbook, that would be great. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick tour of Microsoft Excel, and then we will work on our first activity. After I show you some tips and tricks, we will start our first activity of the day. What I will do is we're going to save this because the activity will move on and we'll use it next week as well. Okay. All right. So as you're looking at Microsoft Excel, so if you're looking at my screen and looking at your version of Microsoft Excel, if it looks a little bit different, don't worry about that. There are some different versions of Microsoft Excel. There's also the ability to add ribbons. So if you don't see maybe like Automate, Developer, Timeline, Power Pivot, don't worry about that. If that's something that you need, I can certainly show you how to add those ribbons in. But don't worry if you don't see some of the ribbons that I have online. So with defaults to the Excel defaults to the home ribbon. Within each one of these ribbons, you have multiple groups. So you have the clipboard group, the font group, the alignment group, the numbers group, styles, and so on. And as you go to the different ribbons, they will have different groupings as well. Now, if you're working on a Macintosh, which is just fine, it might look a little bit different than it is on a PC. I'm not sure why that is, but the Mac version is a tad bit different. All of the capabilities are still there. It's just that the working pieces live in different areas on a Mac version. Okay. So we'll be talking more about the ribbons as we move through our training. Down below that, you have what is called the name box. So I'm just kind of circling my mouse around that. I am in cell A1 right now. If I click and select a different cell, that name box will change. So that's the address. That is where you are in the Microsoft Excel worksheet. Okay. So as we're going through, I'll say, please go to A3 or B10, wherever the case may be, and have you enter in some data. It's better if you are in the same cell that I am. However, it's not the end of the world if you're not. Moving across, you have your formula bar. So this is where you can enter data into each one of the cells. Now, if Excel is something that you're a little bit hesitant about, what I like to tell people is that if you break it down in small bite-sized pieces. Microsoft Excel, in each one of these cells, you can put one of four things. You can put a label, you can put a value, you can put a formula, you can write your own formulas, or you can insert a function. And that's the only thing that can go in each one of these cells. That's the only thing that can go in each one of these cells. Uh, so then that's the formula bar. Now you can enter information from the formula bar, or you can enter information from the cell. It's up to you. Typically, I enter information from the cell until we get into maybe some nested statements where it's a little bit, they're a little bit longer. Then I will come up to my formula bar and work on the function in there. But that's up to you. You can decide. Down below that, we have all of our columns. So we start with column A, and I'm just using my arrow key to move over. Once you get to Z, it goes to double A. There are about 300,000 columns that you can choose from. Now, the next thing that you're gonna do, you're gonna see the rows. So there's thousands and thousands of rows as well. Starts with one and it just keeps on going. I forget how many rows there are, but there's about the same equivalent, around 300,000. So it will just keep going and going and going, just like the Energizer Bunny. Again, when you're referring to a cell, you say the column first and the row second. So it's always the column and then the row. So for example, D2020. F19, and so on. Again, as I'm moving around here, you probably are noticing that the mouse face changes quite frequently. And I'm going to point that out to you because depending on what the mouse face looks like, that's going to determine what Excel is going to perform. Okay, so we'll talk about that in length as we go through this. Down below, you have sheet 1. If you've been using Excel for a long time, you probably remember when Excel defaulted to 3 worksheets. It doesn't really matter. We can add worksheets, we can delete worksheets, and so on. The question that I get quite frequently is, do I have to say, if I have multiple worksheets within my workbook, do I have to save each worksheet? And the answer is no. You save one file, one workbook, and when you do that, it all saves into one file. So think of it as a textbook or a novel. You've got multiple chapters within that book. Okay. Then there are some different views. Oh, I guess I don't have those views up. That's okay. I wasn't going to show you anyway. If my screen looks a little bit different, I have zoomed this out in for you. So it's easier for you to see on your end. Once we get going, I may reduce that a little bit as we're working through it. Okay, let me ask you this. Has anybody ever done any other training with me? While I'm waiting for you to put something in the, yeah, and Michelle, I knew that you had. Okay. Good to know. Just to let you know, we will take a break around noon or so, so that you can get up and stretch, grab a cup of coffee or whatever the case may be. Before we get started, I do want to show you one thing. I want to talk to you about one thing. I want to show you how to use something called the fill handle. If you haven't used the fill handle before, you're going to find that the fill handle will be one of your very best friends because it allows you to work very efficiently and effectively and save yourself some time. So I'm going to go into A1. I'm going to select cell A1 and I'm just going to type in a 5 and then I'm going to hit the enter key and I'm going to type in the 10 and hit the enter key. Now, I have taught Excel a pattern, counting by 5s. What I want to do is I want to count by 5s all the way to 100, but I don't want to have to sit here and type in 15, 20, 25, 30, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I taught Excel a pattern. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight this data. So I'm going to click inside of A1, hold down my mouse, and pull down to A2. You'll note that there is it's outlined in green. It's also the first cell that you select is always white and the remainder will be gray. So don't think that that anything is wrong because that first cell is always white, the rest are gray. Now, when I'm looking for my fill handle, in the second, in A2 and cell A2, you'll note that there's a little green square down here. And that is my fill handle, okay? Now, you see how that mouse space can change as I move around? The white cross allows you to select a cell. The cross, the four arrows, that will allow you to move data from one cell or cells to another. And the fill handle is right here. So what you're doing, what you want is that little black plus sign, or what a lot of people call the rabbit face. So with the rabbit face, what we're going to do is we are going to just fill, and you can see, and you see where it says on that 45, now 50, 55, 70, 90, 100, right there, 100. So we counted by fives to 100. Now, a lot of people will say to me, well, why on earth would I ever want to count by fives? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. That's not the idea of this practice activity. It's to understand that and utilize the fill handle. So Excel is very intuitive as well. If I go to another cell, doesn't matter which one, and I type in today is the first day of the week, it's Sunday. If I type in Sunday and then I use my fill handle, look what it does for me. It will fill in the days of the week. If I abbreviate Sunday, Excel will abbreviate the fill. Okay, so it knows the days of the week. It also knows the months of the year, and this is April. So we have April, and I can pull out, and it will fill in the months of the year. So Excel knows quite a few little things, but you just have to know the tips and tricks so that you don't have to, so that you're working smarter, not harder. All right, any questions so far? Do not hesitate to interrupt me if I'm going too fast or you have a question, if you want me to repeat something. Like I said, you are more than welcome to turn on your microphone, turn on your camera if you want to. So don't be shy. If you have a question, I always love questions. That's one of the reasons that I really like doing these workshops is that you're going to ask me a question and say, wow, I never thought about it like that. Okay, yeah, good question, Michelle. As a matter of fact, that is something that we are going to talk about today. As soon as we get through, we're going to do a couple of activities. And then in our second activity, we are going to talk about dates. So perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and start our first activity. What we need to do is we need to delete everything that we just typed in. So there is a little triangle in between column A and row 1. And note that when I hover my mouse over the column name, like A, I have an arrow pointing down. That means it's going to select that column. If I hover my mouse over a row number, it's going to select that row. That's another mouse face. But what I was talking about was this triangle. If I click, that's going to select your entire worksheet. Okay, so if I select the entire worksheet, hit the delete key. Now don't hit the backspace key. That's a mistake that a lot of people make, hitting that backspace key. Make sure you hit the delete key. If you're ever stuck, the best button to hit is the escape key in Microsoft Excel. The escape key seems to get you out of all kinds of little jams in Microsoft Excel. So if you're taking notes, and yes, like I said, this is being recorded and it will be sent out to you so that you can view it again if you would like to. And I do have my email address that I will share with you again at the end of our session. All right, so let's start our first activity. What we're going to do is we're going to go to B1 and I'm going to type in January. So we're going to create a couple of different types of budgets. This first budget is not going to have a lot of items in it, but it's going to teach us how to enter values and labels and insert and build some formulas and insert some functions, just so that you get a feel for utilizing Microsoft Excel. And then our second one is also going to be a budget but we're going to design it in a little bit of a different manner. That reason being is depending on how you want to use Excel. I always like to tell people that think to the future. Think that maybe you want to use some of those higher level functions built into Microsoft Excel, like pivot tables and things like that. And if you're going, Julie, I don't even know what a pivot table is. Don't worry, we will go over that. Not today, but next week. Some of those higher level functions that Microsoft Excel features, we want to make sure that you have those. Okay, so I'm going to type in January, and then I'm going to use my fill handle, and I'm going to pull across to December, and I'm going to fill in January through December. Okay. Now, you'll note that September is cut off a little bit. November's needs a little bit more room. Maybe December could use a little bit more. While May, June, July, those are all just fine. But let's make everything consistent. Let's go ahead and increase our column width. All right. So I'm going to select the entire worksheet. All right. So when you change your font, when you change your column width or your row height, I usually select the entire worksheet. That way everything is changed at the same time. And I'm the type of person that I like all of my column widths to be the same or just about the same, all of my row heights to be the same, etc. So I'm going to show you how to increase or decrease the column width. There are 4 ways to do that. Just keep in mind that you can also adjust the row height through those same practices. So by selecting the entire worksheet, I'm now going to come up to the cells group, and I'm going to go to format. Underneath format, you have column width, you have row height, you have auto fit row height, you have column width, and you have auto fit column width. So let's go to column width first. So if I go to column width, it's going to populate this little tiny window, and it says my column width is currently 8.43. Now your PC is probably either saying 8.43 or 8.11. It doesn't matter. We need to change the column width. That's all we're concerned about. So we need to increase that number, but not by much. So I'm going to put in a 10 and hit the enter key. And that looks really nice. Okay, we've got room for everything in there. Now, if you probably noticed, if you go to format, you can also auto fit the column width. So what Excel is going to do with this is it's going to look at how many characters are in each cell, and it's going to, like, column F with May would be much smaller than column M with December. So I'm just going to click on that and show you what happens. But I'm going to use my little friend up here, the undo. It's Control Z. Z is in zebra. And if you're not familiar with the undo button, become familiar with it, because it is another great tool that I use on a regular basis. Okay, so that's 2 ways that you can increase or decrease the column width. Now you can also do this with your mouse, excuse me. If I hover my mouse, there's another mouse face, right? If I hover my mouse in between any 2 columns, I get an arrow to the east and the west. And that will allow me to pull out, and it's going to increase, because I'm pulling out, it's going to increase each one of the column widths to 13. Okay. And again, if I pull in, I can pull in. It's hard to get right on a number. Oh, I was almost there. That's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. So if you do that, you're going to either increase or decrease your column width. This is one of those things in Excel that years ago I found out by mistake. I had somebody come into my office and I was talking to them, and I evidently did this. And when I started to go back to my Excel worksheet, I said, what on earth happened? And I figured out that I could increase or decrease the column width by pulling, and that was completely by mistake. Didn't mean to do that. So another way that you can auto fit is if you double click, and so if I double click in between any two, it's gonna auto adjust each column. Again, Control Z, I'm going to undo. We'll be using that quite a bit because as we're entering information, we might do just a little bit more room in the cell. Okay, we might need just a little bit more room in the cell. So we can just come up and double click, and it will adjust to the number or the label that is in there. Okay, so now I'm going to go down to A2. And in A2, we're going to type in the label income. And then I'm going to hit the enter key, and I'm just going to type in 2 fictitious characters. Oops. Okay, so you can type in any 2 names that you want to. Does not matter. As a matter of fact, since you're probably at home, you could do this for real if you wanted to. Just to get started. All right, so far we've got a bunch of labels in there. We know how to adjust the column width and the row height. Now we're going to go to cell B3. And in cell B3, we are going to type in 4 digits. So we're going to enter our first value. So I'm going to go to cell B3, and I'm going to type in 4 digits. I'm going to hit the enter key now, and I'm going to type in 4 more digits. Now you're probably saying to yourself, but wait a second. If this is their income, why don't we put in a $sign and decimals? Don't worry, Excel will do all of that for us. Just type in 4 digits, okay? If you ever do an activity with, 3rd or 4th graders, they'll want to say, oh yeah, I make $1 million a month. And it's kind of fun, but then the numbers get so large that it's hard for them to manipulate them for somebody that's new to Excel. All right, so we have our 4 digits in. Let's move on. We need to highlight cells B3 and B4. And what we're going to do is we are going to apply the currency format. Now, underneath the numbers, you have the $sign. This is the accounting number format. The only difference between accounting and currency is where the $sign resides. In the accounting format, it resides flush with the left hand of the cell. With the currency, it resides flush with the first digit in your number. So you can choose either one of them. It does not matter. But I'm going to show you some other things. So we're going to go up, we're going to click on the down arrow. And you'll note that you have currency and accounting right here. You also have, going back to Michelle's question, you also have short date and long date, and we will look at that. I promise I haven't forgotten. But we're going to go all the way down to the bottom. We're going to click on more number formats. More number formats, and we are going to click on currency. So underneath currency, let's talk about what we have in this window. We selected currency. Here's a sample of what it's going to look like, $2,343. Now, I didn't put any decimals, and I didn't ask you to put any decimals. So I'm going to decrease this decimal to 0. All right. Then here's the symbol. If you have different symbols that you want to use, you could certainly select that. Below this, we have how negative numbers will be displayed. Now, hopefully we won't have any negative numbers in our spreadsheet today, but just keep in mind that there are 4 different ways that you can have negative numbers in the currency format, how they will be shown. Okay, any questions? No. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and it automatically inserted the $sign and the comma for us. All right, now let's use our fill handle. We have 2 selected. We have B3 and B4 selected. We're going to use our fill handle rather than doing that for 11 more months. We're going to use our fill handle, and we're going to pull this across to December, and it will copy those across. So, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna keep moving. Down in A5, we are going to put in total. Whoops, total. There is a spell check in Excel, by the way. So if you need to spell check, you can spell check. So in B5, we're gonna write a formula to add together B3 and B4. Then I'm gonna show you how to insert a function, okay? So we're gonna write our first formula. And with a formula or a function, each one needs to begin with the same symbol, and that is the equal sign. If you don't put in the equal sign, Excel will assume that you are entering a label. Okay, so it will not calculate anything without that equal sign. And then we're going to say, and I always tell people, if you can use your mouse to build a formula or a function, you are a lot better off because you're eliminating human error. So I'm going to take my mouse and I'm going to click on B3 and let up, and look what it does. It inserts B3 into that cell. It also highlights cell B3. It's got the little dancing ants around it. Then I'm going to put it a plus sign. And I'm going to click on B4. And it also selects B4 in a different color. And has the dancing ants around that. Now, why does Excel do that? This is a really simple formula that we're putting in. As you become more invested in using Excel and your skill level builds, you're going to want to be cognizant of what cells are selected in Excel to make sure that you are analyzing the correct data, okay? You want to make sure that you're analyzing the correct data. So it should say equal B3 plus B4, enter, and there's our number, okay? I know a lot of people that want to say equal and then put in $2,343 plus $2,675. Do not do that. You are defeating the purpose of using Excel. If you do that and then you come up and you say, okay, Bob got a bonus in January for $500. So his bonus, so with the bonus, that way he made $2,843. Now, when I hit the enter key, it's automatically going to update my total. And that's what Excel is all about. Okay, as we're building this worksheet out, you're going to see that when we manipulate cells, that multiple formulas and functions are going to update. Okay, all right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go over to cell C5. In cell C5, we're going to insert a function. All right. And to do that, we're going to type in equal. And I know that this function is, the name of it is sum. So when I start to type that in, it automatically populates all of the built-in functions that start with SUM. So you have quite a few here. And to be honest with you, past sum product, I do not know what these are. That's one of the things that I always like to tell people, that if somebody comes up to you and says that they are an expert in Excel, assume that they are not telling the truth or they're exaggerating, because I personally only know one person that I would consider to be an expert in Excel, and that is someone that I work with, and she is extremely knowledgeable in Microsoft Excel. All right, so here they are. So what we need to do is to insert this, we need to select sum. So I'm just going to go ahead. You can do this in two ways. You can double click on sum, or you can highlight it and hit the tab key. And what it does is it says, okay, equal sum. And then down below, it kind of gives you a little cheat sheet. It says number 1, number 2, which I think it should be cell 1 and cell, first cell and last cell, but nobody asked me. So what we want to do here is we want to select cells C3 and C4. And you see what it does is when I highlight that, it puts in C3 colon C4. Now we're only dealing with 2 cells here, but eventually, we could be dealing with 100, 700, 1,000, 50,000 lines of data sometimes. So we want to make sure that we have that sum equal sum C3 colon C4. And then you don't have to close your parentheses when you hit the enter key. Excel will do it for you, but I just wanted to show you that that's what completes that function. When I hit the enter key, it tells me that their income for February was $5,018. Okay, no questions. So I'm going to move over to March. Now, there's an easier way to do this. All right. In the editing group, you have something called AutoSum. So if you're looking at your PC or your computer and you don't see the words AutoSum, look for the sideways M. Look for the sideways M and click on it and look what it does. It automatically builds the formula for us. Okay, automatically builds the formula for us. If you click on the down arrow, you can see that you can automatically input sum, excuse me, average, count numbers, max, min, and so on. So that is frequently used. The one thing I'm going to remind you about again that you need to be very careful about is making sure when you use these auto sum, auto average, auto count numbers, and so on, is that you are cognizant again of what cells Excel selects. Hit the enter key. Oops, hit the enter key, and there we have it. $5,018. All right. I don't see any questions. Oh, I do not have that block. You don't have the editing block, Michelle?
No, I do not.
Does it stop at cells?
Let me look. Oh, you know what? I did just find the editing block. It just has a down arrow, so I just need to click that to hit the auto sum. It's not showing like yours does.
Okay, good. Glad you found it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's the auto sum. Now, we've already created 3 formulas, 1 formula, 2 functions, but we didn't have to do that 3 times. We could have used the fill handle, okay? So go to D5, find that fill handle and pull all the way across to December. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that Excel did not copy this number. It copied the formula. Okay, so if I come over to April and I double click, it'll show me the formula. It has column E. If I go to the next one, it went to column F. If I went to the next one, go to the next one, it went to column G, and so on. That is what is known. There's 2 different types of references that we are going to talk about, a relative reference and an absolute reference. This is a relative reference. Okay, this is a relative reference. It's relative to the column and the row. Now, then I'm going to move down to A7. And in A7, we're going to put in expenses. Now, we're not going to put in a lot of expenses because I don't want to spend a lot of time entering data. I want to show you how to use Excel, but we do need a little bit of data for us to do that. So underneath expenses, and you do not need to use the same expenses that I am, but you can. I'm just going to put in 5 expenses. So I'm going to put in, oops, OPPD, mortgage, cell phones, or cell phone, I guess. Cell phones, yeah, you need cell phones, maybe the internet, Now, I put in 4 so far, and the reason that I put in those examples is because most of the time, and we're going to assume that all 4 of those are the same from January through December. That'll make it faster for us to put our numbers in. Then I'm gonna go down to A12 and I'm going to put in a expense that will be different each month because I don't want our expenses to have the same sum factor throughout the months, okay? So I'm gonna put it in here. Oops. I'm gonna put in here Bailey and Blue, and those are pets, okay? So you could put in pets, you could, whoops, let me didn't explain what I was doing there. You could put in maybe a credit card, whatever you want. Now you'll notice that Bailey Blue cell phones they need a little bit more room. So I'm gonna come up in between columns A and B. I'm gonna double click and see how that moved that out. Just enough so that all 5 of my expenses have room in there. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to OPPD. I'm just gonna type in some numbers here. We're not gonna have any decimals, just making sure there's no questions. Okay, so I put in those 4. Now, before I move forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'm gonna highlight these 4 numbers. Then I'm going to go up to general and we're going to tell it to apply the currency. Okay, now I'm taking a little bit of a different approach to applying currency. And when I do that, it automatically puts in the decimals. To decrease the decimals without going back to more number formats, what you can do is just click on the decrease decimal here from within the numbers group. So decrease decimal. I'm just going to hover my mouse over that so you can see where that is. So you should have 4 numbers in for your first 4 expenses with the accounting format and no decimals. Once you have that, we're going to use the fill handle and we're going to pull over to December and voila, it filled in. And so we just put in all of our numbers very quick. Now I'm going to move down to Bailey and Blue. And I'm just going to randomly put in numbers, like I said, so that all of my sums are not the same. Okay. Well, I better make that more. That's December, Christmas time. Okay. So I'm going to give you a minute to type those numbers in, make sure that everybody has them in. Again, if you have questions, let me know. All right, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to move to cell B13. In cell B13, I'm going to come up, I'm going to use my little magic auto sum. And there it is. So it grabbed equals sum, open parentheses, B8 colon B12. Okay. And so we have those in there. When you hit the enter key, it's going to give you your sum for your expenses for January. So mine were $2,252. Once you have that, you can use the autofill, the fill handle, to pull across. And you should see different numbers for your expenses all the way across. Okay? So if I go in and I change one of these, let's say that in July, let's say that in July, we added another dog to the mix. So $445, let's just say they're pretty expensive these days, so $17.75. When I hit $17.75, when I hit the enter key, it's gonna change the amount that goes into my total for expenses. And there it changed it. Okay. So then I'm gonna come down to A15. And in A15, oops, I'm gonna type in savings. So now we're gonna build another formula. And that is going to be the equal sign. And we're gonna take B5 minus B13. Okay, so we're going to say, okay, well, this was our income for January. These were our expenses for January. And when you hit the enter key, it should show you what you can put in savings. Mine was $3,266. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, so again, let me show you what that formula is. So we just have B5 minus B13. And then enter. And we're gonna go ahead and use our fill handle again. I'm just gonna pull all the way across and it will give me what we can put in our savings. Now, you're looking at this and you're saying, oh no, I forgot an expense. But I've already, I have my formulas in here for the total, my formula in here for my savings. Do I have to go in and redo all of those if I add another row? The answer is no. Microsoft Excel will update everything for you. So if you would please, let's just take a look at these. So we have B8 colon B12. And we have B5 and B13. So what's going to happen is if we go to, if you would please hover your mouse over the number 10 in for row 10. When you click, it's going to highlight that row. You can right click and insert, or you can come up to the cells group and insert. It's going to give you a row above. Whenever you insert rows, it inserts above. Whenever you insert columns, it inserts to the left. All right, so now what happened to our formulas? Oh, it updated to B13, and I bet that the savings updated to B14, and it did. So now we have to put in another expense. So I'm just going to put in here, yeah, I'm going to put it in Amazon, the scary one, for me anyway. So I'll put in my expense. Now, when I put in a number, note that it automatically formatted it to currency because it's aware of its surroundings, so to speak. So I'm just going to go through and put in some random numbers for that expense. When I'm doing this, watch that my total changes and my savings changes. Okay? So everything updates automatically. Now, gonna move over to column N. Gonna move over to column N, and in column N, I am going to enter the label total. All right. Then I'm going to go down to N5. Gonna go down to N5, and you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna auto sum. So when you click on auto sum, it automatically inserts this function equals sum, open parentheses, B5 colon M5. I'm looking at my data. It did select the correct data, so I can hit my enter key. And my total income for Cindy and Bob was $60,716. Then I can come down to cell N8. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna do it auto sum equal sum B8 colon M8, and that is correct. So I can hit the enter key. Now, I want to have Excel add the rest of my expenses, but I don't want to have to keep going to insert auto sum. Now, we only have 5 more lines to work with, but the thing if you had, like I said, multiple hundreds of pages of lines, you wouldn't want to have to insert the auto sum. So we're going to use the fill handle, but I got another little trick for you. In this case, you don't have to click and pull down. You can double click and it will fill down. And it knows that this is a total row, that row 14 is a total row, so it stops. Okay. So all you need to do is double click and it's going to fill that formula down. Okay, I'm going to show you my formulas. And to look at your formulas, to go into the formula mode, there's one or two things you can do. You can go to the formulas ribbon and you can click on show formulas. It's just a toggle switch. It'll turn that on and off. You can also, and this is what I typically do, is I just stay right on the home ribbon and I hit the control and the tilde. And the tilde is the little squiggly line right below the escape key. So you can see that when I filled this down, it went from row 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 12 and 13. Okay. Any questions? Okay. When we want to go back to continue working, make sure that you are not in the edit mode. Or the formula mode, excuse me. We want to go back to the edit mode so we can continue working. Now, I'm running out of room here a little bit. Not really running out of room, but when I keep moving over, we're going to go over to column O next. But when I do that, now I can't see what's in column A. And I really want to see what the expense is so that it relates to each one of my expenses, or whether I put Bob first and Cindy second, or Cindy or Bob. I want to see row or column A. So there's a way to do this. If you would please click in cell B2. In cell B2, we're going to move from the home ribbon over to the view ribbon. On the view ribbon, we're going to look underneath the Windows group. And the Windows group what we're looking for is something called freeze panes. So it might be just this little logo right here. So find the freeze panes. I'm gonna give you a second just to show you what mine looks like. Make sure that everybody finds it okay. Now, in the freeze panes, it gives you three options. You can freeze the top row, you can freeze the first column, or you can determine which columns and rows are frozen. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Julie, what do you mean freeze the page? What does that mean? That means that if I freeze the top row, if I scroll down, I'm always going to see the labels January, February, March, April, May, June, all the way over to however many labels I have. It can be very important. So let's go ahead and freeze that top row just so we can experience this. When you freeze the top row, you may or may not have not noticed this. The line in between rows 1 and 2 gets just a little bit darker, not a lot. It could be, that could stand out more in my opinion. When you scroll down, see what happens. I can still see my labels in row 1, okay? The next option was to freeze the first column. Now, what's gonna happen is if I freeze the first column, it's gonna unfreeze the top row. So keep that in mind, but let's just test that out. Freeze the column. Now, if I just use my arrow key and go over, look at that, I can still see my labels in column A. However, I want to lock the first row and the first column. Okay, so that's why I asked you to select cell B2. Because what's going to happen is, let me unfreeze that. This third option is to freeze for you to determine what is frozen. So when the cell that you select, everything above it and everything to the left of it will be frozen. Okay, so if you want to freeze more than one row or more than one column, you could do so. We don't need to right now. All we need is row 1 and column A. I can freeze those. And then when I scroll over, look what happens. I can see my labels. That's what we need. Okay. Let's stop, see if there's any questions. Okay. So let's go over to O1. So in O1, I'm going to put in a percentage sign. And then I'm going to go down to O8. In O8, we are going to write a formula. That formula is going to tell us what percentage of our annual income we spent on each one of our expenses. Okay. So we're going to start with the equal sign. And we're going to say that I want N8, and we're going to divide that. And the division is that forward slash, I don't know, I think it's a forward slash. I get myself mixed up between forward slash and backslash. I think it's a forward slash. Divided by N5. So equal N8 divided by N5. Okay. When you hit the enter key, it's gonna give us a decimal. But that's okay. We can change that. So when you get your decimal, select that cell. Move from the view ribbon back over to the home ribbon and click on the percentage sign underneath number. Now, when I click on the percentage sign, what it's doing is it's either rounding that percentage up or down. But I want more of a true percent. So I am going to increase the decimal by 2. So it's telling me that the percentage is 3.7. 3.7%. Here again is my formula. Equal N8 divided by N5. No questions? People are really quiet today. Okay. Now, what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you fill this down. So remember to fill that down, just get the fill handle and double click. Any questions? I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions, and which kind of surprises me. Because when I double click, is this what yours looks like or somewhat? Did you get these odd results as well? Okay, well, let's talk about why that happened. When we filled that down, I'm just gonna go ahead and let's look at our formulas. When we filled that down, Excel did exactly what we told it to. It went from N8 to N9 to N10, 11, 12, 13, which is right. That's what we wanted it to do. But it also went from N5 to N6 to N7 to N8, 9, and 10. But we needed to look at N5. The reason that we have errors in N6 and N7 is because there's nothing in that cell. Then we get to N11 and there's something in the cell, but it's not dividing it by the annual income. All right. This little green triangle in the upper right-hand corner of the box, that is telling us that there's an error. That's telling us that there is an error. Okay, so what we need to do, this is a relative reference. We need to create an absolute reference. So let me go back. There we go. Let's go back. Let's delete this and let's double click on this. We need to edit this formula. What we need to do is we need to lock row 5. We need to tell Excel to divide N8 by N5, but when we fill this down, we need to create what's called an absolute reference. And that will always keep it on line 5. Okay, now, the absolute reference is something that can be very confusing to absorb. So if you're not sure, sometimes you'll have to lock the column, sometimes you have to lock the row, sometimes you have to lock both of them. If you're not sure which one to lock both of them. So I keep using this term lock. How do you lock? The $ will create the absolute reference. So I'm going to click in between my backslash in the end, and I'm going to put in a $. And then I'm going to arrow over and I'm going to put in another $. So that when we fill this down, it always looks at cell N5. It's going to go from N8 to N9 to N10, 11, 12, 13, but it's always going to stay on N5. You might be saying to yourself, well, why don't I just put in there equal N8 divided by $60,716. And you could do that. But again, you're defeating the purpose of Excel. Because if something happens, let's say that Cindy got a bonus in December. She got $1,000 bonus. So we're going to say $3,675. When I hit the enter key, it's going to impact the income. I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it. It's going to impact the income for December. It's going to impact the total income, their annual income. It's going to impact the savings account, and it's going to impact the percentage that we spent on OPPD of the annual income. So here we go. See all of us flip. It's kind of in slow motion, so you could see it, but they all were impacted. They were all impacted. I am so sorry about that. Now, I am going to, now we can fill this down. And there are our percentages. Okay, so we have everything in there. Any questions? I'm just thinking out loud here, when the recording for this goes out, I'm gonna go ahead and send this completed activity with it so that you have that to look at. It might be nice to have something to look at so you can look at the formulas. Okay, it is 12:03. I'm gonna stop the recording for just a second. Let's take just a 5-minute break. Okay, I'll pause the recording. But it's 12:03, probably 12:04. We'll start at 12:09. Okay, so I'm gonna pause. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're gonna do a couple more things with this activity, and then we're going to move on to our second one for the day, second and final one for the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over, move the chat. I put the chat back over there. Okay, we're going to insert a chart. So we are going to chart our expenses and our totals. Okay, so in order to select or highlight non-adjacent items in Microsoft Excel, what you're going to have to do is to hold down the control key. So here's the process that you will take. You're going to select A8 down to A13. Then you're going to let up on your mouse. You're going to hold down the control key, and you're going to select N8 down to N13 and let up on the control key and your mouse. Now, I'm going to move over to the insert ribbon, and on the insert ribbon, we have what's called charts. Underneath those charts, you have several different options. It can be really confusing. So this is what I always do. I click on recommended charts. So when I put in recommended charts, it says, okay, here are some charts that we think would match the data that you have highlighted very well. We have a clustered column, we have a pie chart, we have a clustered bar, we have a funnel, and we have a Pareto. So we can select from any one of those that we want, or if we don't like them, notice that we have two tabs here. You have recommended charts and you have all charts. So you can change that if you want to, but I always go with what Excel thinks is best. I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to select the clustered bar and I'm going to click on OK. So when I inserted my chart, it inserted right over the top of all of my data. But it also gave me two more ribbons to work with. So we have chart design and we have a format ribbon. If I deselect this chart, so I'm going to click in cell D2, I deselected the chart, those ribbons disappeared. They aren't showing because Excel doesn't think that we're working with the chart because we deselected it. So if you're looking for a ribbon, make sure that you have the chart selected. There we go, and they'll come right back. Okay, that can be really frustrating if you don't understand that. So I'm going to go to chart design, and the first thing I want to do is I'm going to move this chart to its own worksheet because I want to be able to see my data. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to click on move chart. When I click on move chart, it populates this window. I'm going to say I want it to populate a new sheet. And what do we want to call the new worksheet? Right now it's chart 1. We're just going to call it my chart. I know, real original, right? Whoops. I'm going to call it my chart. So I'm going to click on OK. And it inserts another chart. So now I have my chart and I have sheet 1. Okay, so let's stay on my chart for a minute. What I want to do, I want to take a look at this. What do I have here? First thing I want to look at is my different chart styles. I always like to have something with a little bit of a darker background, but that's just my choice. You can choose from any one of these that you would like. I also want some different chart elements, okay? I don't necessarily need a chart title, so I'm going to delete that. But I'm looking at this, and although it has an axis down here going in increments of 5,000, I'd rather have the exact amounts on each one of these bars. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over here to add chart element. And I'm going to go to data labels, and where do I want them? On the inside and centered, outside in. That looks good. Now I can go ahead and I can get rid of this axis. I don't need that anymore. We'll clean this up a little bit. The other thing is my font size is a little bit small. So you can do a couple of different things here. You can select the chart and you can right click and go to font. You can change the font that you want. So I'm just going to come in here and maybe my favorite font is Georgia. So I'm going to put in Georgia, and then I'm going to come over and I'm going to increase the font size by maybe to 16. And then I'm going to click on OK. So you can right click and go to font, or you can go back to the home ribbon and increase it or change it from there. Both ways work just fine. Now you can see it a lot better. Now the other thing, my bars. Notice that when I select one of the bars, it selects all of the bars. When I selected that darker background, these don't snap. They don't vibrate to me. Whatever, I'm not sure what the term is that I'm looking for. So I'm going to change the fill. I'm just going to come up here and let's see what works. It's purple do. It's not too bad. Yeah. So charts are one of those things that you can look at and you can play around with, all constantly, and you're looking at it because you want it to be just perfect. right? So you can go in and change that. We can even put a shape outline on here if we want to. What goes with purple? Let's put a green on there. And I put a green on there, but it's not very wide. So I'm just gonna come down to weight. I'm gonna make it. Ooh, that does not look good. Maybe it's the color green. That's a little bit better. There's a long joke behind that. About the colors purple and green. Do they really match? That's personal joke though. Okay. So now let's take a look at this. Let's go to sheet one. First of all, sheet one doesn't have a name yet. So I'm going to double click on sheet one. I'm going to go to sheet one. And on sheet one, I'm going to call this my 2023 budget. Okay. Then I'm just gonna go ahead. I want the budget to be first, not the chart. So I'm gonna move these. So I'm just gonna click and hold down on my 2023 budget. I'm gonna pull it over to the other side of my chart. Okay. So now we have my 2023 budget and you have my chart. Now, the other thing that you might be saying to yourself is, well, wait a second. If I change something on my budget, do I have to insert the chart again? No, the answer is no. So let's say that I go back and in June we paid the house off. So I'm just going to delete these house payments. When I hit delete, it's going to impact. Remember at the beginning, I said, as we build this, and we manipulate the data, it's going to impact multiple cells. So now it's going to impact multiple cells and our chart. So when I delete these, it's going to impact our total. It's going to impact our savings. It's going to impact our total for the year, and it's going to impact our percentage, and it's going to update my chart. So I'm going to delete, hit the enter key. Oops, what's going on here? Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see him flip. Now, go back to my chart. Let's see what happened. It still is the largest expense, but it updated it. It took half of that away. It was 21,000. Okay. Now the other really cool thing I'm going to show you is that I'm going to go to PowerPoint for just a second. And I'm going to add a blank slide. So when I go to new slide, I'm just going to grab a blank slide in here. And we can delete this if we want to. Don't necessarily have to. What I'm going to do is I am going to go back to Excel. And I'm going to copy this chart and I'm going to paste it into my PowerPoint. So when I go to paste, you want to make sure you can paste in different ways. You want to make sure that you paste the destination theme, the source formatting, sorry, keep source formatting and link data. Now, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to do that? I want to do that if you have numbers, if you are in a situation where you need to present numbers, maybe for your company, your place of employment, if graphics are very powerful, just looking at numbers, nah. If you can insert charts and use graphics to talk about your numbers, it's going to make much more of an impact. Okay. So what I want to show you here, I'm just going to go ahead and move these side by side. So I have, where's Excel? There it is. So I have Excel on the left and I have PowerPoint on the right. If I go back to my 2022 budget and I undo that, so I'm going to undo the mortgages that I deleted in July through December. See how it updates in PowerPoint? They talk to one another, okay? I would suggest saving them in the same folder. I mean, I don't have them saved in the same folder right now, but I would suggest that. That's just a little FYI. I use that a lot. I combine Excel and PowerPoint on a regular basis. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to save this because I promised that I would email it to everybody. And we're gonna go to File. And we are going to start a new blank workbook. Yes, it would. Excellent question. Yeah, the PowerPoint does not have to be open. It will update it automatically because it's linked. Okay. So we are going to create some of kind of a checkbook registry, for expenses. All right. And the way that I'm going to format this, or we are going to format this, is going to allow us to go in and use some of those higher level functions in Microsoft Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in A1, and I'm just going to type in date. And the next thing that we want is going to be item. And the next is going to be store. And our price. And whoops. Our quantity. Our subtotal. And our total. All right, so question at the very beginning was date. How do I format dates? So if you would please, let's go into A2. Go into A2 and type in today's date. Today is April 14th, 2024. When I hit the enter key, it defaults to a different format. There are lots of different formats for dates. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select A2. And we're going to come back up. Now, this is very, very important, okay? If you have a cell and you're expecting it to format a way that it's not, this is the first thing you need to look at, is what is the format. When I click in A1, it's general. When I click in A2, it's custom, okay? So let's go down and we're going to go to more number formats. And we're going to click on date. Here are all of the dates formats. When you click on these, it's going to give you the sample right here. I personally like the date that includes the day of the week. That's just me. I can come down. I'm just using my arrow key to go down. See all these? There are lots of different ways that you can format dates. But I'm going to scroll back up. You can select whichever date you want. And Michelle, I hope that this answers your question. So I'm going to select Wednesday, March 14th, 2012, that format. And you can see that it's putting in there Sunday, April 14th, 2024. When I click on OK, it makes that change. Okay. Any questions about, I'm not done talking about the date, but I want to see if there's any questions yet. Okay, now if I go down, and put in another date, if I put in, let's just say April 15th, 2024. Because I didn't format the cell, it's going to go to the default, okay? So what we can do, we can highlight the multiple cells if we want to, and we can format it that way. You can also use something called the Format Painter. The Format Painter is in the clipboard group. If you haven't used this before, it's a nice little tool. When I select, I have cell A2 selected, I come up and I click on Format Painter. Note that it's the dancing ants are around A2, and my mouse face has now changed to a plus sign with a little paintbrush. So what I can do is I can apply that format to one cell or multiple cells at the same time. So I'm going to click and I'm just going to come down. We're going to put in, we'll go down to like row 30. And it applied that format to all of those cells for me. All right, any questions about the Format Painter?
Yes, just quickly. So my question originally was, how do you get it to do the dates sequentially? So automatically do 14, 15, 16, 17 all the way down.
Oh, I see. Okay, so this is the great question since I have 14, 15, 16 in here, but I don't want to keep putting new dates in. You can highlight those and use your fill handle and it will fill down to as far as you want to go. So we went all the way out to May 12th, down to row 30. Now, when I did that, look what we've got here. Does that answer your question, Michelle?
Yes, it does. Apparently, you just need more than one cell, because if I populate just one cell April 14th and do that, it seems to always keep it at April 14th. So you need.
It will just copy April 14th, but if you show it a sequence, just like at the beginning when we did the 5 and the 10, then it will go in the sequence. Yeah, good question. All right, so I've got some pound signs here. Didn't know that scares people sometimes. What that is telling us is that in A5 and A12, let's see if there's any more. Nope, just those two. There's not enough room for this date to show. So I'm going to come up in between A and B. I'm going to get my arrows to the east and the west. I'm going to double click and it will increase the column width for column A so that all those dates are in there. Now, matter of fact, what is this column width? Let's just see. .43. I'm going to increase these. Let's just say 20. Give us a little bit more room. Maybe that's too far. I wish there was a live preview of this. Let's see. Let's go with 18. So for items, yeah, and then I'm going to decrease these a little bit. Okay, just playing around with it a little bit. All right, so then we're going to put in our item. What did we buy? Now, before we do that, we're going to look at something called data validation. Data validation allows us to select from a drop-down list. Okay, so if you shop at specific stores a lot, why would you have to type those in? Why don't you just type them in once and then you have them in a list and you can you can select the store that you want. That way it'll be spelled correctly. You might, it eliminates the spelling error. And so on. So what is data validation? What are you talking about, Julie? Let's create a list first. So I'm going to come down here to sheet 1. I'm going to click on the plus sign. It's going to give me another worksheet. Let me increase this a little bit. And that is called store. So I'm going to just put in here stores. And I'm going to make a list of stores that potentially that you shop at. Okay. Or online, either way. So I'm just gonna start putting stores in. Start with some of the big box stores. You can make your own list. You don't have to copy mine. You can if you want to, though. There's no rhyme or reason for any of these, just to let you know. We'll put them in alphabetical order when we're done. Maybe what are some other stores? I'm okay. I'm looking at a list, by the way. I had to Google it. And then I'm gonna put in a note, okay? So think of the stores that you typically go to and make a list of those. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back over to sheet 1. And I'm going to select cell C2. In cell C2, we're going to move from the home ribbon over to the data ribbon. On the data ribbon, we're going to go to something called data validation. Okay, and I'm going to give you a second to look for that because sometimes it looks different on your screen. It may not say data validation, but it will have 2 rectangles, one with the check mark, one with the circle with the line going through it. When you click on that, what's going to happen is it's going to come up with this particular window. And it's going to say, okay, what do you have? Well, I have a list, or we have a list. So I'm going to select from a list. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to click inside of source. Okay, and we'll do this again, by the way. I'm going to click inside of source. I'm going to move from sheet 1 to sheet 2. And I'm going to highlight from A2 down to A15. Now, a couple of things to note. We're going to change the name of sheet 2. And the data validation will automatically update it in this formula. Okay. So don't worry about that. When I highlighted A2 through A15, note that it automatically inserted the absolute reference. so that if we take this data validation and we fill it down to row 30, it won't go outside of this range. We have that range locked in. And we can expand that range if we need to, if we have another store that we think of, or a store that pops up that we shop at quite a bit. You can add that to your list with no problem whatsoever. Okay, then I'm going to come up and I'm going to click on OK. It will take me back to sheet 1, but look what I've got. Here's my list. All I have to do is point. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that a lot of people don't put the data validation, the list, on another worksheet. They hide it someplace on the original worksheet. I personally don't like that. It's up to you. But I guess my thinking is that if you hand this off to somebody else and they're going, wait a second, where's this list of stores? Where is this populating from? I want to be able to see that. That's why I put it on another worksheet, and we're going to make it very clear that that is our data validation, so that somebody would know where to find this if you shared this out with them. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and make that. Well, let's stick with this. There's our data validation. Now, a question that I get quite frequently is, and can I have it auto-populate? So why do I have to scroll down? When I started to type in Walmart, it populated Walmart for me. Okay, but that only happens in certain versions of Excel. So if you're at home and you're trying this and it's not working, there is a workaround. I tried to figure it out to show people. I could not, and this was a while ago. I could not figure it out. And then I realized that my version of Microsoft Excel does it automatically. Again, it depends on what version of Excel you have. It might auto-populate it, it might not. Let's go back over to sheet 2 for a second, because I told you that we were going to put these in alphabetical order. I don't think I want other included in that though. So I'm going to highlight from A2 down to A14, and I'm going to move from back to the home ribbon, and I'm just going to tell this that I want it from A to Z. So there it is in alphabetical order, with the other being last. Now let's go back to my data validation. Now let's see if that updated this. And did it go in alphabetical order? Did, yes. So I changed it. Now let's do that again. Just so that you know the step. So I'm going to select cell C3. We can delete that Home Depot. I'm going to select cell C3. We're going to move to the data ribbon. We're going to go to data validation. Change the value to a list. Click inside of source. Go to sheet 2. Highlight from Amazon all the way down to other. Everything looks good, and we can click on OK. And now we have the data validation on 2 of our cells. Now, how do we apply that data validation? And because I don't want to have to do this 30 times, right? We could highlight all of the cells that we want to apply it to at once, or you can use the fill handle. Now, if you're playing around with this and you have something like I picked Home Depot and you fill this down, it's going to fill in Home Depot. So if you're going to use the fill handle, delete what you have in there and then use the fill handle to apply this down to row 30. See, now it's got the down arrow. Oops. Okay. Now, one thing I can tell you right now that we want to do is we want to freeze this first row, right? So let's practice that. We are going to go to view, and we're going to tell it that we want to freeze. For right now, let's do the top row. we're gonna freeze the top row so that when we scroll down, we still see our labels. Date, items, store, price, quantity, subtotal and total. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna select, let's say, well, yeah, 5 stores. So I'm just gonna say Amazon. And Furniture Mart. Lowe's. Nards, only 5, that's all I'm picking is 5, I just want to show you how this is gonna work. Let's see, maybe Target. Okay, so I just thought of one that I would put in there, I would put CVS in there because that is my pharmacy. All right, so item. Tower County. Price. Was $14.99. And about 1. Now. Let's look at the price. So for the price, the subtotal and the total, we're going to want to apply the currency with 2 decimals. Let's do that right now before we move on. So I'm going to highlight down to row 30. Then I'm going to come over, I'm going to hold down my control key and I'm going to select rows F and G as well. And I'm going to move back to the home ribbon. I'm going to go to general and I'm just going to apply currency. Now, you didn't see anything happen because we don't have any numbers in there yet. But when we start adding these in, that'll all be formatted the way that we want it to be. See, if I click it, even if I click on F2, look what it says. It says it's formatted to currency. If I click on F1, it's formatted to general. If I click on A2, it's formatted to a date. Okay, so now we've got 3 different examples of formats just within this activity 2 that we started not too long ago. Okay, so Nebraska Furniture Mart, what did I buy there? Carpets. And I'm gonna make this easy. It's gonna be flowers. Oh, no, we'll go with I don't know. Prescription. Okay. So carpeting and flowers. I have no idea what my husband spent, but I'm just gonna put in random amounts. Okay. So the quantity on all of these is going to be 1. So I'm gonna go over my subtotal. Okay, so I'm just getting this set up. I'm going to go over to my subtotal. In my subtotal, I'm gonna say equal, and we want our price times our quantity. And we're gonna hit the enter key. Okay, now if we want to keep a running total, it's gonna be a little bit different because we want a running total. This is the subtotal for just this purchase. But if we want to do a running total like we did, if anybody keeps their checkbook registry, if you still do that, this is if you want to do it in Excel, this is the way that you would do it. You're gonna type in, whoops, what did I just do? Let's undo. Not sure what key I just hit. Let's go to G2. I'm going to type in the equal sign, and this is just going to equal whatever's in F2 for right now, and hit the enter key. Then I'm going to come down to F3. I'm going to type in equal, and it's going to be D3 times E3, and enter. And realistically, once we type that in once, we can fill this all the way down to row 30, because that's how many line items we're going to have in this activity. Okay, and it put in the 0 for me automatically. I don't have anything in there yet. Then this is a little bit different. Then in G3, we're gonna have to say equal and our subtotal, so F3 plus G2 and enter. So there is our running total. Okay, so when we come down here, we're gonna say equal. We want the 56.66 in F4 plus G3 and enter. So this is our running total. You don't have to do it this way. But I just wanted to show you that. Now I can fill this down as well. All the way to row 30. Okay, then what's gonna happen is we've got this all set up so that when we put in our next item, when we put in our next line item, let's say that, oops, don't need a decimal there. Okay, let's say we got 2 of those. So when I hit 2 and I hit the enter key, it's going to update my subtotal and my total all the way down. See how that flipped? So it's giving me my expenses all the way down. All right, let's see. Let's change the names of these. So this is going to be sheet 1. I'm gonna change the name, and that is going to be my 2020-24 expenses. And then sheet 2 is going to be just gonna call this data validation. That way, if somebody's looking for it, they will know. Here's your expenses, here's your data validation. Okay, so let's say that you are working along and you want to add another item to your data validation. So I'm just going to come in here to 15. I'm going to insert a row and I'm going to put in here CVS. Now it's not automatically going to update this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select from C3 down to whoa, I don't want to select all of them. Okay. I guess I can't do it that. There we go. Oh, what happened to C3? There we go. Now I can go back to data and to data validation. And let's just see. Click inside. And it moved it to 16, didn't it? Just by going back to data validation. So I'm going to click on OK. And now there it is. It didn't put it in alphabetical order, but that's okay. There we have it. Okay, we just have a few minutes left. I do want to open it up to see if there are any questions. Hopefully you will plan on joining me again next week. I will email out these templates so that and any other templates that we might be using next week. If there's something in particular that you would like to know about Excel, that you're struggling with, that you want me to cover, feel free to email me. If you're working on a document and that you can send to me if it doesn't have, any if it doesn't have any personal information in it, that would be a FERPA issue, you can email it to me. Here is my email address. Put this back up. So email me at jduspace@gmail.com. Are there any questions?
I just want to confirm that you are going to send both of these spreadsheets out because towards the end there you went so fast I wasn't able to keep up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, 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 I am going to.
Okay. And will we reuse these spreadsheets next session?
The last one, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions? I will make sure and slow down next week. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. It looks like it is a beautiful day outside. So I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, but I will send out the link again so it's easier for you to access it. Have a great day. And again, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thanks, everybody.